Hi, guys, and welcome to episode 5 of The Liberal Conservative, Demolishing the West-East Wing, a Ballroom, and a Breakdown of Norms. So, October 31st, Halloween. On the day that we think about ghosts and spooks, today we talk about the specter haunting American democracy, a massive renovation of the People's House. So, the demolition of the White House began October 20th of this year, 2025, so 11 days ago, as part of the planned Ballroom project by the Trump administration. This isn't just, a brick and mortar. The structure of the White House has long symbolized democracy, shared governance, and the idea that this is the people's house. Now we see that structure being altered, quite literally, while many other norms and institutions are under pressure and also being demolished. Let's go back to the basics. What is the White House anyway? What has it stood for? How many presidents before have made changes, and what kind of changes, and how drastic of changes? And then we'll look at what's happening now in the country and in the White House, and why it matters, and how it symbolizes a real destruction of norms. The White House is history, it's symbolism, it's continuity. Construction of the White House began in 1792 under architect James Hoban, and it became the executive residence and the office of the U.S. president. Major historical events, the 1814 fire by British troops, rebuilt by 1817. Over the years, many presidents made changes, expansions, renovations, interior redesigns, but seldom has the National Landmark been literally torn down, in part for a lavish new addition. For example, the 1902 renovation under Theodore Roosevelt added the West Wing, and the massive rebuild under Harry S. Truman circa 1948 through 1952, which preserved the exterior walls but gutted the interior. The White House is more than a residence. It is both a home for the president and a symbol of American democracy. The people's house, quote unquote. The fact that every president since John Adams has occupied the White House, it means something. It symbolizes continuity and some sort of normalcy in the transition of power. The importance of preservation and the norms and the continuity, for example, the restoration under First Lady Jacqueline Kennedy emphasized that everything in the White House must have a reason for being there. So when we look at changes today, we're not just looking at interior decor or even extension. We're seeing something that may challenge the continuity of that symbolism. So let's talk about the project, this gaudy 90,000 square foot ballroom to be built adjoining the East Wing with seating capacity for, first it was 650 and now it's up to 1,000 in later reports. The cost initially is going to be 200 million, now reported up to 250 million. Remember, we're in the middle of a shutdown still, right? So the funding project claimed to be privately funded by Donald Trump and private donors, but you know that that's not going to be the case, right? Please. The timeline and the demolition is that it began on October 20th of 2025 on the East Wing facade, despite earlier assurances that the project wouldn't interfere with existing structure. Why is this different? Well, unlike prior modifications, interior redesign, technological upgrades, etc., this is a structural change, a partial demolition of a historically preserved facade. It's described as the most significant structural change since 1948. The design theme is the look of the ballroom, and ancillary renovations echo Trump's aesthetic, right? Gaudy, very like Mar-a-Lago, with gold chandeliers, grand scale, blah, blah. He's just absolutely grotesque. And so the question becomes, what does this structural transformation mean in terms of symbolism, norms, and what the White House stands for? Well, if we use architecture as, let's say, a metaphor, when you rip down part of the wing of the people's house, what does it say about the relationship between power and the people? Especially during a shutdown, especially during a time when our economy is crashing, the dollar is losing value, the job market is stagnant, people are having a hard time paying for groceries, there's immigration raids, there's illegalities happening all over the fucking country. The use of a ballroom language, a space space for galas, elite receptions, major donors, VIPs. Contrast that with a public accessible state institution space, and especially with what I just named that is happening across the country. The president is using the American military to go into states and terrorize American cities and American citizens. The idea of bulldozing a democracy. Donald Trump is the only president who's taken an actual bulldozer to the White House. You know, kind of like what he's doing to democracy, basically, right? Maybe it's worth stating as a metaphor that even if literal machinery is used, that is a physical sign of structural change in governance. The breakdown of norms, norm of modesty, symbol of the people's house instead of luxury entertainment space, norm of oversight and tradition, demolition proceeding despite regulatory concerns, the role of the national capital, planning commission questioned, right? The norm of prioritizing public needs. We want to tie this in between like the budget and the trade-off, the government shutdown, healthcare, foreign aid, like all of these things. We're paying billions of dollars at this point to Israel for a continuing genocide. We're also paying $40 million to Argentina, but we are gutting healthcare benefits, and the government is literally shut down because Republicans want to rip away the Affordable Care Act. Major resources are being allocated to this vanity project, costing hundreds of millions of dollars. The government is shut down, trimming social programs, healthcare under threat. The contrast is like big donors are benefiting from access to elite gala space versus everyday Americans struggling with mortgages, groceries, and paying for healthcare. The influence that big money and donations is having on our governing system is quite right in front of our face. The presidency is really becoming more than ever intertwined with international donor access. And the irony of building what's meant to host heads of states to represent democratic quality is being reshaped into something that needs more like a palace or a private club. So what are the consequences? What should people care about? And what can we do about it? Well, once norms are broken, they are irreversible, or are they reversible? What precedent, does this set for the future administrations? Public access as symbolic ownership. If the people's house becomes less about the people and more about the elite, what does that mean for democracy? Who are the donors? How much influence do they have? How is the project subject to review and regulation? The structural shift in building mirrors, structural shift in governance, weakening of oversight, erosion of norms, concentration of power, all of that is taking place in our society right now. Keep track of these so-called donors. Let's follow how the space is used. We already probably know, right? I mean, look at who went to the inauguration. Very different than our previous inaugurations, right? I mean, all I can say is as ghosts haunt the streets, there's another kind of haunting taking place in this country, in Washington, D.C., and basically around the world. The sound that we're hearing more and more of isn't just wind howling through the corridors of power. It's the sound of bulldozers, literally taking to the people's house and to our Constitution and to our democracy. We're literally talking about the destruction, both literal and symbolic, of the United States as we know it. So this demolition is taking place as the U.S. government is entering its taking place as the U.S. government entered its 14th day of shutdown, the longest and most chaotic in modern history. Both shutdowns that were chaotic happened under a Trump administration. Thousands of federal workers furloughed, while millions of Americans struggled to pay rent, buy groceries, and afford health care. And this is our new normal. Our new normal is an illegitimate administration that is bulldozing through our norms via the Supreme Court, via complete lawlessness and illegalities all across the country. Unfortunately, we also have have a Democratic Party that is mostly silent and sitting by watching it happen. Why? Because they too benefit from the same donor class that is basically benefiting the Republicans right now. And so they are afraid of not getting paid. Let's be real honest about what's happening. Both Democrats and Republicans alike are being paid by AIPAC and other billionaire donors. And politicians right now in the United States of both parties are lining their pockets and caring mostly about themselves and pretending to be on different sides of the aisle, but really there's no opposition to a dictatorship and an authoritarian regime that is happening right in front of our eyes. So on this Halloween, as we walk through a haunted democracy, remember that the White House was once for the people, and today it's being turned into a palace for the few by the very man who promised to drain the swamp, except he is the literal swamp. He is the swamp. The ghosts of our institutions are watching, however, and they're whispering reminders that democracy doesn't die in one day. It dies in silence, in apathy, and in distraction. As citizens, we cannot afford to just watch history happen, because right now it's being rewritten with concrete and chandeliers made of gold. So when the bulldozers roll through the East Wing and the gold leaf is hung over the ghost of democracy, remember that the people's house belongs to us, but only if we demand it back. Thank you for listening to The Liberal Conservative. If you found value in today's episode, share it with someone who still believes in democracy and who believes it's worth saving. Follow, subscribe, and stay connected, because silence isn't neutrality, it's surrender. Until next time, stay awake, stay sovereign, and stay loud.